Welcome to No Question About That. This is the midweek pod. I'm Ed with Wayne today. How's it going, Wayne?
Not bad, thank you, Ed. How are you?
Doing all right. Yeah, well, we've got a few things to talk about. The United women won their first game in the Champions League this year. We've got some operational changes at United with Ameesh Malek coming in on the football side and operational roles moved over from Brentford. There's speculation about a Saudi takeover with a senior member of the Saudi government tweeting something that wasn't actually very cryptic. I was going to call it cryptic, but it was not. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe's interview with The Times, which has made all the back pages. So where should we start? How are you first? Doing all right?
I know you've asked a couple of times there, and you're surprised by me saying I'm okay. Thought I was going to go straight into my personal nonsense like I normally do. But I will address it because it's the very start of the pod and everyone's been very nice on social media. And my dad died this week. I did post about it on socials and so many people reached out to send condolences and kind wishes. So I'm actually all right. I'm doing that. It's obviously a grieving process and everything like that. It's very, very tough. I'm not going to pretend it's not, but I'm all right. And I'm just so grateful for everyone reaching out. So thank you to anyone who's listening to this or watching this and they reached out and said something nice, because I've not had a chance to reply to everyone, but I just appreciate that support. So yeah, thank you for that. Where do you want to start? Women, let's start in the good news story.
Yeah. United played Valarenge from Norway. They'd already beaten Brann in the qualifiers, who are a better team in theory. Yeah. I don't know, tough game, this one. I found it hard to break them down. They're completely dominant, probably should have been 2 or 3 up by half time, but they were very stubborn at the back, Valarenge, and United just couldn't quite break through, although never really looked like they weren't going to win after they scored the goal. Clear penalty. And yeah, good news, first victory in the Champions League, which this year is a Swiss format, but they'll play 6 games rather than 8 on the men's side.
Yeah. Not very good. I thought the performance was similar to the one against Brann in the away game.
Tight and
felt like they were building to something but could never quite get there. And I felt like that again with the performance yesterday. Only that they got over the line because of the error. I do think you look at how good the women's team have played this season, how resolute they are as a unit, and you look at the kind of chaos that's going around all areas of the club, really, in terms of the resettling, the stability, and trying to redefine what consistency and a byword for continuity, all those kind of things are meant to look like at the club. Well, the women's team are thriving. They've thrived this season in spite of all of that, not because of anything that they've been given. And I think that's massive kudos to them. So there's an element of me where I look at that win last night and the performance and say, all right, well, that's a step forward from week by week, really, that we've seen progress from the knockout stages. This is what it looks like they've learned a little bit, and they got over the line, albeit with a penalty. But then there's the other element of it that you think is where they've come into now, where is the elite level of the competitions that they're in, and what United lack through no fault of their own, no fault of the management direction, no fault of the squad, but through the investment and through the lack of sort of forward planning that's been dedicated to the women's club team. You can sort of see where that lets us down now, not in a completely transparent way, but more like now where you can see that we can kick on. There's a really good opportunity there, but you can see where that kind of experience that we lack with some of the players that we've lost over the last couple of years. You think, if we had, no disrespect to all the women that are there who are playing so well at the moment, but where that experience has kind of gone, like with the likes of Russo, you think if they kept hold of some of those players, that would be even in an even better, even stronger, more mature position in those kind of performances. But taking nothing away from that performance and that victory, because they are still steps forward. I just feel like when you can sort of see where we might come unstuck and where we've lost what we had, which could help us. That's my only concern is the forecasting really down the line. But it's a really, really good start to the season and really good result last night.
Yeah, fully agree. I mean, even if it wasn't about keeping the players who left, because over the years some really big names have left, high quality players, replacing them, United have done. They've kind of worked hard in the market to get good deals. They're not paying big fees for players. and their wage budget is about half of Chelsea's. So I've mentioned this on the pod before. The way the finances in the women's game works is kind of a soft salary cap, but it does mean that investment from the club overall is basically allowed, and United could split the way they do the commercial deals in a different way to up the budget. They've decided not to do that. It's a choice. And it's left the squad a bit thin in attacking areas. I think in midfield and defensive areas, pretty strong, actually. There's several options there in all positions. But up front, I mean, we saw the three main one. Well, Celine Bizet was out, but we had Elizabeth Turland and Melvin Mallard, who pretty much started all the games this season. We had Leah Galton out as well. It's just a bit thin, And in fact, beyond Turland, there isn't really a striker, Rachel Williams, but she's 36 or something now.
Yeah.
And so that's where it may get difficult if playing a lot more games this season starts to cause injuries or fatigue or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that's where the kind of lack of resources into the club is going to make a difference. But yeah, in terms of the start of the season, been excellent defensively, best defensive record in the league. Very good draw against Arsenal. Played even better against Chelsea. Probably should have won that game, to be honest.
Yeah.
This is Chelsea, who are completely unbeaten. Were beating everyone at the start of the season. So it's all very good. And, credit to Mark Skinner. I think he's taken a lot of criticism. He's a particular type of personality that he does not get on with all the women in that squad. But he got a new contract. He earned it by qualifying United for the Champions League. And they've made an excellent start. They've got some really tough games to come, let's be honest. They're playing PSG at Old Trafford. That'll be a big game. They've got Lyon next, who beat Arsenal on match day 1. Famous club in the women's game, won the Champions League like 5 times in a row back in the 2010. So, I mean, it's a great moment for the club, the women's team, that they're on this stage, and they've got there by rights as well. They had to go the difficult way, playing through that qualifying tournament to make it.
It's funny because, on the setup of the tournament itself, because anyone who's used to listening to my whole moans will know how opposed I am to the general setup of the Champions League now. How much of a farce it is. I took it in the men's competition where it's lost its prestige, it's lost its kind of lust. I think it has. I know it was a decent competition last season, but in terms of the prestige of it being the cream of the crop, the absolute best team in the world, all that, you would have thought that it just at some point rest back to it being champions or create a new team just for a new competition just for champions. I have the opposite feeling with the women's game because they've got an acceleration to make, they've got a catching up to do. And I don't really see it that much as a problem because this is an opportunity for those big teams to get that exposure playing against each other. And there's a history of that competition, don't get me wrong, and it is prestigious in its own right in the women's game, but it is already what it is. It never sort of 40 years of what it was Champions League did before in Cup. So I don't really have that much of an issue. And of course, United being where they are and never having been champions of the domestic league, then it's good for them to get this type of exposure and growth, because this is what is ultimately going to determine the success of the club. And I don't mean that in an obvious kind of way, but what I mean is if you've got the lack of backing from the club, as we've seen,
it has to be organic, doesn't it? Yeah,
exactly. And it is happening, and it is happening through the support, and it's happening through the players, the likes of Ella Toon, who's part of what the overall culture of the club stands for. So when you have those kind of things that are organic, and they do appeal to the public, then the growth comes from that side, and you can no longer ignore the investment. Think that this is everything that the club are doing on the women's side at the moment in terms of the team and the way that they're doing it is a massive credit. And last night, there are going to be difficult days, and there might even be a big beating in this group, but it should not take away from the massive strides that the team have been making over the last 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Word for Jess Park as well, who's had a really excellent start to the season. Yeah. Obviously, legitimately some questions about Was it a good strategy to let Grace Clinton go, young player that they'd spent a lot of time sort of nurturing to be the player she is, England international, but it seemed like she was in the last year of her contract and was minded to leave. And United have, I guess, done the sensible thing there and got a fee this time out, which they didn't for some of those other big names, Mary Earps and Lauren James and Honor Bache and so on, that had left the club in the past. But Jess Park been excellent. Really nice fee. I think she's always gets the ball and looks to take on players, extremely proactive, and had a really good start to the season and has kind of improved the team, given the team some real balance, I think.
Completely agree, yeah.
All right, well, there's more to come on that. I think there should be a pretty exciting tournament with the men's team not in European football this season. We get our Champions League fix one way or another, don't we? And the under-21s have also got a few effectively friendlies for teams that are not in their UEFA youth tournaments as well. So a little bit of European football this season.
Yeah, a little.
Yeah, sort of. All right. Well, so Jim did an interview with the Times. He was on the Times Business podcast. It wasn't the Sports People. It was wide-ranging, I'd say, talking about operations, cost-cutting, financial stuff, relationship with the Glazers. I guess the thing that's made the biggest headlines is him saying that he thinks he should judge Ruben Amorim over a 3-year period. He mentions Sir Alex Ferguson in that, also Mikel Arteta for a more modern reference, I guess. This caused quite a stir. What was your initial reaction to it?
When I first saw the quotes, so obviously it caught me unaware that he'd done the interview, so I saw the quotes coming out first of all, and I wasn't sure. But then obviously the Times are his mouthpiece at the moment. They're doing a lot of work with him.
He tends to go to prestige publications, right? FT, Times, Bloomberg, BBC a couple of times here, rather than... I haven't seen him on the Stretford Paddock yet or the United Stand. Maybe that's coming.
Yeah,
so Jim, if you want to come on our podcast, we will interview you happily.
Yeah, we'll ask you questions. No, it's an interesting... If you think about all the major hits that Ratcliffe has done, and I'll say let's say two. First being the announcement of his intention that came through the Times when he, just around the time we were signing Casemiro and Anthony. That was when the first rumblings came out about Ratcliffe, and that came out through the Times. And then there was another one when he did the big feature, when he started doing the round tables, but there was a big feature that came out. The Times are doing different features with him, like there was that Rumour, the documentary that INEOS are making, and I think there's a couple of Times writers on that as well who were working with him on that and writing a book alongside it. So there's a lot of work that's going hand in hand through the Times sports room and Ratcliffe anyway. So I think the one thing that you would take from that is that it's in the interests of that department to put Ratcliffe across in the best possible way, because Curry in favour with that relationship. However, the content is still the content and the words are still the words. And when they come across in such a black and white way, there's no kind of manipulation, really. There's no kind of you can't get into the words and go, all right. For example, the 3 years comment, the comment about the academy, you can't misinterpret where he's going with these things. They're quite open.
Yeah.
So you can't manipulate them. So they can't make him look better. And I don't really know, to be honest, because I don't think they're particularly bad things. I mean, I think that whether or not the intention would be to do Amorim over a 3-year spell, but he's not saying in that he can lose every game for 3 years.
No, he said it's a results business. So
exactly.
Which is fair enough, yeah.
But the way that some people have interpreted that is, he's going to be here for 3 years no matter how bad it gets. That's not quite what he was saying. And
no, it's not.
But the other thing is, and we'll talk about the different staff changes later, it's been so ruthless in different areas of the club that to suggest that that's not going to be the case at this level, at the managerial level, is ludicrous, because that's the one where it matters most, really. And so I don't think really that he's blind to that, and I don't think it means that we're not going to make a change. It would be odd at this moment in time, having given that interview and having it given to his main mouthpiece, and exploding the way it has done across the media, everyone's picked it up, like BBC are running with it as a big story. So it would be odd in that situation to say that very short-term future, Amrim's future is in danger. Say if we lose Everly to Liverpool, or even if we lose 3 out of the next 5 or something like that, it's still enough sounding to go like, oh, well, it's safe no matter what. I still think, I did say this on an earlier podcast, even though I've gone backwards on it because of the poor results and performances, and I'm not convinced by what happened against Sunderland either. You look at it and think, well, probably because of the way that we've done things in the past, he's still probably looking towards February or March. In that ideal world, we will have got over some of those bumps and there'll be a direction there. And considering the way that we've made changes in the past and the way that we've been forced to change a manager, and there's been a lot of pressure to back him in the first window, or whoever that successor has been, even when they've been temporary, like Ragnick and Solskjaer when he's on a caretaker basis, pressure to back them in January when they didn't have the flexibility to do that. I think keeping Amorim gives INEOS guys more flexibility to kind of go, no, we're not going to back you in January. We're going to see what we do with this squad and see the improvement there, which I don't really like, because we know that the squad still needs a bit of strengthening, but I can see the strategy in that. And I think the 3-year thing is a sort of misdirection, but I think really maybe February or March is probably a bit better with that.
My reaction to the 3-year thing is that they're going to back the manager fully and positively and totally until the day they sack him, right? And it should be that way. I don't think he should equivocate in public. Yeah. I mean, imagine if he'd said, well, we're not really sure, we're taking it game to game. Imagine the insane amount of pressure. I mean, that would be basically fatal for Amorim.
Yeah.
And so he had to do that. I don't think you should take it literally. They will look at the results. You can make a sort of argument if you squint really hard that the underlying data suggests there's an improvement to come. Certainly the trailing XG differential between XG and XG against has improved significantly. There's some major caveats with that. I would say you don't need to get into all of it, but that he's going to back the manager until he doesn't. Sorry, finish your point.
No, the point that was made that has been upsetting a few people has been the comment about the academy.
Yeah.
And that it's there to make money. I just think that was a broader point. I mean, these things, when you read them in black and white, they look quite poor. But really, that is kind of the premise of it, is either to make, this is academies in general, not just a United. The point in general was to either make them profitable for players or to primarily put players into the first team.
Yeah.
Everyone, I mean, there's no second guessing that. The primary objective of an academy, and this isn't anything that contradicts what Ratcliffe says or probably thinks, primary objective is to develop players for the first team that are free and they go in, and then you've got a free asset who will hopefully become either very, very good and you don't need to sell him on because he's one of the best players in the team, or profitable in that he develops in the first team and becomes an asset, or they don't make it into the first team, they're still profitable anyway because they're an asset that you develop for nothing. So there's nothing that upsets me in what he said there. I know it has upset a few people because they look at it along the eyes of saying, oh, it's a mercenary decision. But this is, if you go back to like sort of the creation of, in the era of Gibson and Crickman and Rocket, this is what it was for. It was like, the Gibson actually said on one occasion that he couldn't keep subsidising the first team because he was putting out so much money in transfer fees that hopefully they would balance the books by selling some of those players on. So it was always, I don't think that was the intent of doing it. It was like, so this is an acceptable byproduct of in this academy. And that's what made it such a revolutionary concept, that a club can raise money in that kind of way, and also connection. It's the biggest thing a football club is its community. So strengthen the connection by putting local players in the team, strengthen their business plan by selling them on. So I don't think there's anything bad in that. And also, if you look at the last 5-6 years, and we've talked about this many times about United being poor sellers, particularly with the academy products, looking at how profitable that is now from a PSR perspective, is that that's the perspective in which he's talking about. That's the lens in which he's speaking through. So you can't be upset when everyone has sort of leveraged that.
No, it is football. Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't take much offence to that. I think in the context, if you have Sully on Twitter who has some inside information, said that Kobbie Mainoo is looking to get out of the club, at least on loan. World Cup year in January. He looks at Amorim, sees that he's not getting any opportunities really. I mean, I think he started one game this season, and coming on for 15 minutes at the end of a game is not going to help him develop at all, right? So in that context, Ratcliffe saying it needs to be profitable, and you look at Kobbie Mainoo and you're like, and they already sold Scott McTominay and so on and so on and so on, Rashford, and maybe Kobbie's next, and it's good, as you say, from a PSR perspective. Doesn't make any difference sort of generally financially, but short-term PSR hit. Yeah. Then in that context, you're like, oh, he just sees it as a profit center. I think you take it holistically, as you say, it's either players in the first team or sell on. And if you don't like the idea of selling academy players, fine. I'd much rather they were in the first team than being sold. But if they're not quite good enough for the standard that we want to be at, then you look at Manchester City, Liverpool and Chelsea in particular, less so Arsenal. They have a fourth revenue stream from this. Chelsea have hundreds of millions of pounds they've sold in youth products over and above Manchester United. That is a structural advantage that they have, right? So if I was running the club, and I'm not, I'd look at it the same way. I'd be like, talent in the first team so we don't have to spend money on players in the transfer market. Connection with the local community, as you say, often, not always, with it's a very international game as well, the youth market, or a profit stream. It costs Manchester United about £20 million a year to run that academy, right? So, and I'm saying it about because they don't break it out. Aston Villa do, and they put 18 million in their account. So I'm, around about. And this is what an elite academy does. And so you make that back somehow, right? Either selling players or bring them into the first team. And he's also right that I've not had that many players over the last decade come into the first team from the youth team. Now that's true everywhere. It's really hard, right?
Yeah.
It's the top of the pyramid. And so what have we had in the last decade? Rashford, McTominay, Greenwood, Kobbie Mainoo, and a few others that are on the edge of it. I mean, obviously right now there's Tyler Fredrickson, who's come through the academy. He's probably the closest. There's a few others that he has 2 or 3 players every week training with the first team. They do it on a rotational basis. They may be close, maybe not. Who knows? But yeah, I know that it caused a big stir, this, but I think in the context of the whole interview, if you listen to it rather than just take the quotes, it's a reasonable position to take, even if you don't like Ratcliffe. And personally, I've said before, right from the beginning, I had someone on this show who was suing Ratcliffe. So, it's like, I'm not his PR person here. I don't like his politics. He's an old dude that's got, old dude views on many things, including the women's team. And so I'm not minded to like this guy, but I'm not going to get hysterical over this interview because I thought most of the positions were reasonable, honestly.
Yeah.
All right, there's a couple of related things to this. Ameesh Malek has joined from Brentford. We are raiding Brentford quite significantly at the moment because we stole their youth director, Stephen Torpey, as well, who's taken over, well regarded in the youth circles, who's going to have overall responsibility for that academy.
Yeah.
And then Ameesh Malek is coming on. He was the COO at Brentford, so he's coming in on operations side. Looks like he's going to be in charge of the new Carrington, the upgraded Carrington, mostly upgraded. There's still but talking about academy, they are still working out of temporary buildings, there's been some talk about they're going to remove that and build another building. The first team asked for a paddle court. So, yeah, you teamers, you get over to the cliff. I know it hasn't been cleaned up in 50 years, but you get over there because we want a paddle court. Yeah. So anyway, Ameesh Malek will be in charge of all of this infrastructure and operations and security and so on. So ops person won't make much of a difference to the first team picture, but just strengthening United's operations, which I guess is good. I don't know. Oh, by the way, in that Ratcliffe interview, he said There's some very talented people at Manchester United, but there's a lot of mediocre people too, which that bit I took issue with. Like just discounting humans like that. They're just mediocre. Yeah. Fucking bin them off. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I will say from...
And he wasn't talking about you, Wayne. Let's just be clear about that.
Well, we don't know about that. Because he didn't name names. And
he read one of your books?
Maybe. Well,
ask him to do the foreword on your next one. See what he says.
Omar might have lent him his copy of the book. Do you know, though, I will say, I did say this at the time when I left. I don't want to talk too much about it, but when I left, when we were talking about the people who have gone, I never saw anyone who left who I didn't think was doing an important job.
Right.
And then when they left, I couldn't say that their contribution wasn't missed, because it was in many different ways. So all this sort of trimming the fat of it, and there was a lot of wastage. I never saw that. I saw people who were doing valuable jobs. And I think if you're the biggest club in the world and the demands are much bigger and the attention's much bigger, then you do need a bigger workforce. I don't think it was bloated. It might have been in other departments or other areas. I'm not saying that, but everyone that I saw who left as a result of this, I felt was contributing. So that's my take on that. I don't know anything about the changes, anything about the guy who's coming in, or what kind of purpose the role serves, apart from like maybe a general manager, the training side there. But
it seems like it, yeah.
Also seems more operational rather than just someone with going around everyone going like, this is the way.
Yeah, he's going to report into Jason Wilcox, which tells you he has some kind of football, but Wilcox has football directors are quite a wide-ranging role, more than technical director. So tells you something, I guess. Yeah, I don't think it makes. It's not going to be the thing that makes United great again.
No,
but I guess it just improves the quality of operations and management around Carrington. They've made a big investment there.
Hopefully, but I mean, the other way of looking at that is you'll have no. And I said this maybe we said it when INEOS took over, right, or whenever they took the 20%, 25% in. I said at the time, you're going to see any material changes at the club for 18 months. And we've seen the material changes now. These kind of changes, how are we going to see the consequences of? Not really. We're not going to see them. So yes, all right, it might have some kind of benefit. Hopefully it does.
Marginal gains.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they talk about, right? Marginal gains. And if it does, then fair enough. But Jason needs assistance in those kind of areas. Fair enough. But I just think, like, if you look back to the previous summer when we backed Eric Ten Hag with all the staff that we brought in, the idea was, well, even if there's a long-term solution where Eric Ten Hag isn't in place, well, all these staff have been brought in by INEOS, so they'll all put in place. But they were all gone when he went. Idea, I'm all right. I'm saying, all right, the idea sounds good, but let's give it 18 months. And if he's still there in 18 months, or if someone sacks him in 12 months and says, like Ashworth, what were you doing? We didn't even need you there. You know what I mean? It all sounds good now. Let's wait and see what.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I get a sense that, I mean, I don't have any information on how they've run this process. I've led strategy at an organisation about the same size. I know how you'd think about staffing senior executives and departmental resourcing and stuff like that. It is a longer term process because, yes, you can just draw a line like my old CFO loved to do, just put a red pen through a line on the spreadsheet, effectively. Right? Those departments are gone. And I'd be there arguing as a strategy person, no, let's have the right people, not just cut for the sake of it. What are our important resources? How do we kill projects that don't make sense? How do we up the quality of people or improve resources into areas that are more important? How do you prioritize? And that's what's going on behind the scenes. They're trying to work out what their priorities are and add staff in those areas that they think will make the gains that they need. So, well, good luck, Ameesh Malek. Welcome to the club. And do a good job, mate. Otherwise, you don't have 3 years here. Only certain people get 3 years. All right. Very good. What else are we going to talk about?
My favourite story that we've got to talk about is the tweet from this guy. the boxing.
Yeah. All right. So Turkey, as he's widely known, he's in charge of the Sports and Entertainment Authority or something like that, isn't it? And it's the arm of the government that's been investing in things like Riyadh Season and the boxing stuff. And he's quite prominent on social media. He has more than 7 million followers on X, Twitter. And he tweeted out, the best news I've heard today is a major new investor is in the final stages. I have to say that particular wording, and it's a tweet, so, this is not an announcement to the New York Stock Exchange, so we can take it with a little bit of pinch of salt right now, I'd say. I would say in the way these things are done, that there is zero chance that United are very close to announcing a major new investor. That would have to come with certain announcements to the stock exchange, strategic review, as they said last time. They would have to give fair win to all the other investors to make an offer, or at least, there not be particular, or they call material non-public information for certain people. So I was very skeptical when I saw this, that there was suddenly going to be a brand new investment made. That's before you think about the logistics of the Saudi government making another investment into a Premier League club. You could say it's him personally, but there is no personal when it comes to the Saudi government. Like, they are one and the same. And he's not by birth a part of the royal family. He's not related to MBS, but he's a senior minister working for the government with government money. He may be personally very rich as well. So, who knows? Anyway, I have a lot of skepticism about how real this is and what it really means, right? So if there is suddenly a new investor who's bought some shares, who have they bought off? They're not buying off Ratcliffe. He's there for the long term. Are the Glazer family selling? If they are, all of them have to agree. They have a contractual agreement. So, there's their 40% of the club that they still own, or 60% of the voting rights is they're each in family trusts for each of the 6 Glazers, and they have a contractual agreement that they vote as a block.
Yeah.
So there's no peeling off before they all agree. Are they buying those shares? There's about 20% of the club is free float on the stock exchange, but it has less than 1% of the voting rights. Like, it's just the A shares. No one's going to buy those. Well, you buy them as an investment. It's not particularly a good investment unless you bought before Ratcliffe bought and you sold to Ratcliffe. So anyway. Would you welcome the Saudi government buying into the club?
No. And I think we are at least well positioned to argue this either way, considering the fact that we got what we got when there was the Qatari talk, and we've got what we've got, and it's been difficult. It's not been straightforward. So I think it's still fair to have that conversation and say, no, morally, I still wouldn't. I'm not saying, like I said, there are ethics there with Ratcliffe that aren't great, but yeah, like we said at the time, shows a nice billionaire, unless you're going to get Mr. Beast coming and taking over. I don't think he's got the.
Well, that'd be interesting. Yeah. Beast games now at Old Trafford.
Yeah, he seems like a nice guy. There'll probably be some murky stuff come out about him. I know people try. He seems like the nicest rich person I can see, or could easily name. The point, yeah, I mean, you've listed.
You're not a Swiftie. I don't know if she's nice, to be honest.
She seems like a nice person. So I'm sure, if she had the money, she's certainly got a lot of material to write about Heartbreak at United for sure.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah, I can. I don't know if I listen to a full album's worth of Come On You Reds, unless they get, not Simply Red, Status Quo, Simply Red as well. The Cognell one, for that one they duet with Taylor Swift. But
Cognell and Tay-Tay, yeah. That's I don't know how we descended into this, Wayne, but yeah, looking forward to it.
That might be the only time this calendar year, or maybe many a calendar year, where Mick Hucknall and Taylor Swift get mentioned in the same sentence. But Mick, you're very welcome. And so, yeah, but you listed a load of sensible, logical reasons why it's not likely to happen. But there's two very obvious ones, and the first one is that they have to make some kind of announcement to the stock exchange.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the second one is the Ratcliffe interview itself. He's gone out through his mouthpiece, and it was released this week, so it just wouldn't have happened now. If they would have pulled it, they would have said, no, you've got to leave that one on, because there's been, even if it wasn't, like I said, if it was the other shares in the club, Ratcliffe would have quiet, and you would have actually been hearing the stories of dissent between Ratcliffe and the Glazers, because another party's been allowed in, because we've been talking about the drag-along rights. So it's all right saying fancifully, all right, that this is the key. Interestingly enough, the first person who ran with the tweet story was Mike Keegan, and Mike Keegan was as sourced as anyone could be through the Qataris, whoever they turned out to be in the end. But he was their main mouthpiece for the Daily Mail, and he was the first one who ran with this story. And I think someone else ran with it in the Mail, but Keegan linked to his original article where he was talking about being no interest. When the drag-along rights came along, when that surfaced as a story in August, Keegan rehashed some old things, and I think he talked to his source at the Qataris, and they basically said, no, we're not interested anymore. So there were numerous stories within that story that would have to be in the mainstream before you would even get to talk of a majority investor coming in. So it's so much nonsense. It's almost like it's farming exercise for this guy who's come out. Maybe there's someone who's put him up to it and said, like, well, just test the waters and see what happens if it causes a bit of mischief. That's before you even get to Premier League advisory panels and all that sort of stuff. First of all, they're changing all the rules on this kind of ownership, which is good, great, and everything, because we want to stop this kind of thing from happening. Second of all, like you said, there's already ownership in, and it was difficult enough. It took a long time for Newcastle to get it over the line.
They lied about it as well to get it over the line.
Exactly. There is not a cat in hell's chance that this would happen with United. It just wouldn't happen. No. Even if there was truth in what was happening, in what he was saying, there's no way it would be rationalised by the Premier League. It just wouldn't happen.
No.
So
definitely not. I mean, this is either, for me, a piece of trolling, or he's got some second-hand information. And it's not the Saudis. So everyone is very excited for state ownership at United. Sorry to rain on your parade there. I mean, of course, at any point, the Glazers could decide that they wanted to sell. There's protection on both sides. They can drag Sir Jim along into that sale if the price is above a certain floor, $35 a share. He has first ROFO, right of first offer, so he can match that. Now, you tie that to the fact that INEOS aren't in a great position. I've seen some really hysterical tweets about this, so let's just clear this one up, right? That they have about $6 billion, pounds, euros, I can't remember which one, maybe euros worth of debt. That is very common in a high capitalized or high capital density industry like oil and gas to have a lot of debt, right? Used to work in the telecoms industry, that was true. They'd have, in fact, ratios much worse than this. So their debt to EBITDA ratio is about 6 at the moment. Right? So, 6 times their amount of free cash flow. It's not awesome. That's why their credit rating is down at a BB. United's is, for comparison, about 4-ish, right? So, but take the long-term picture, and most analysts project INEOS to be down at 5 in the following year and 4 after that, right? So they've stopped dividends for a little while. They are not in difficulty because of the debt per se, because they've been building lots of plants. They shut down a couple. They are in a little bit of difficulty because of the nature of the European oil and gas market, which has been a couple of different pressures. 1, decarbonisation. 2, war in Russia and Ukraine has disrupted sort of certainty around what that market looks like. So anyway, that's the big picture on INEOS. They're not about to collapse tomorrow. This has got almost nothing to do with United, other than when Sir Jim put his own money in, eventually they converted it to INEOS, so it's part of INEOS. Yeah. For whatever reason, they decided to do it like that. He has shown no inclination so far to liquidate his INEOS shares in order to buy out United, but it's still always an option, right? Not the best time to start selling your stock in INEOS, but hey, could be done. Anyway, just to clear that one up, because I've seen a few nonsense tweets about that one. We'll go into more detail. We've got a finance pod coming up soon, so we'll go into more detail about that. But anyway, yeah, big picture. I don't think United getting sold to the Saudis right now.
Yeah.
Who knows in the future what would happen, but it seems unlikely to me.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Well, that's exciting. Women's team doing really well. Changes at United. Sir Jim managing to piss everyone off. I mean, I don't think he could have done that interview and not pissed some people off, right? So,
yeah.
Ruben Amorim, not under pressure just yet. When we lose 6-0 at Anfield, that may change things somewhat. God, please not. Please not. Just put in a good performance for Ruben, for the team. Anything. I mean, we've got nearly 10 days until that, so, not worth doing a preview as such now, but please. I'm not a religious man, but I'll convert to any religion that can promise me a victory at Anfield. Yeah. What about you, Wayne? Which God are you praying to?
I'll pray to all of them. I won't pick one. I think it's
hedge your bets, yeah.
Myself, and then just go, look, throw myself on the mercy of anyone who can hit a little draw. Can you remember when in Mourinho, I think it was a sort of 4-0 FC season, and it might not have been, it might have been the season before, but we were winning everyone.
They're doing well, and then he parked the bus at Anfield. I remember that.
Yeah. And, we were like, all right. And it was a comfortable 0-0 draw. There was nothing wrong with it, but it was so defiantly Mourinho that it was like, well, we could have won this game. And it was like, no. I play 0-0s away from home. Big games. It's, okay, fair enough. And what we do for that, well, quite happy with that going into. I suspect Amorim would be quite happy with it.
Yeah. In these big games, he tends to go a little bit conservative, I think. So I'd imagine that he will be a little conservative. That's always a bit disappointing because I think our strength's in attack, really, even though we don't score many goals. But that's part of the reason why. So, again, going back to that trailing XG differential, it has improved significantly on the defensive side of things, right? We've given up a lot of very stupid goals that have high XG this season, but generally speaking, you can see an improvement on the defensive side of things. He said when he came in that that's easier to coach. A lot of coaches would say the same thing. Unfortunately, I think it'll mean he'll go quite defensive at Anfield, and which would be a shame because that Ahmad Mbumo partnerships was starting to look some promising signs against Sunderland.
Yeah, for 40 minutes until they turned it up. That's the caveat I put there. Still, I'm with you. I don't think, and I've said this for many months, I don't think there's safety in numbers with United when they play the defence. And you would suspect the better chance of getting a result is to attack anyway. That's the United way, really. I mean, we joke about Mourinho parking the bus, which he did. And I remember at the time justifying it because thinking the result's a result there and we've been doing well so far in the season. But that's when it started to fall apart because it's still so contrary to everything that United are. And I think that if you don't get it, that's the thing really with Amorim, that sometimes you're struggling to figure out whether or not he really gets United. And that's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's still
I think
a process.
That's a fair critique there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I wouldn't, like I said, I'm not averse to parking the bus, being defensive to result in this situation. I don't think it's the worst strategy. I just think, considering what we've got at both ends of the field, probably better off anyway going, not more attacking, but at least trying to score some goals because don't do that. 6-0.
I worry about conceding territory and momentum to Liverpool and them getting back into form because their weaknesses are at the back. You've got Virgil van Dijk, who's not the player he once was by any stretch, despite his boosters in the media. That's a weakness. They've had trouble in midfield this season, especially on transitions, and their very expensive forward line hasn't quite clicked yet, even though individually all the players are extremely talented. So I'd be worried that is, seize the moment. We'll see what Amorim does, but that's what I'd like to do. All right. I guess that is it. Extra this week. I think I was supposed to be talking with Adam about managerial options if Ruben goes. that may be a bit moot now since he's staying, but you can check out my Substack. I put in a list of, some strategic options for United for temporary to permanent if Amorim was to be fired. Seems very unlikely unless we get annihilated at Liverpool and in a few games after that as well. Thank you, everyone. You can catch us on the socials, Wayne at Wayne Barton. He has his Substack as well if you want to check out his writing. And you just released your autobiography of Paul Parker. Is it in the shops yet, or you just announced it? I wasn't.
No, it was published on Monday. Still in the books in myself. So waiting on them. Some people have ordered them, signed copies of that. But it's available now, on Kindle and hardback.
Very good. Smash that buy button on Amazon or other bookstore of choice. You can catch me on my Substack, on Twitter, Blue Sky. Threads? I don't know. I might not be on Threads. The fact that I do not know means I'm probably not there. But there you go. Thank you very, very much, everyone. Check out patreon.com/NQAT pod for our extra shows, merch, and we'll catch you all next time.